everybody, what's going on? This is Matt, and welcome to week 13 of the Language Learning Mastermind group. And if you're new here, this is basically a series of videos to help you stay motivated in your language learning. I talk about my own language learning progress, I talk about language learning in general, and hopefully that will kind of give you some ideas on how to make more progress, to get faster results, and overall just keep you motivated on the journey of learning a language just because it takes so long. So this is kind of this mastermind weekly series of videos where I try to give you all of that in kind of a weekly format. And so with all that being said, let's go ahead and get started. So I wanted to start off this week and talk about my Russian progress, and it's going really well. I'm very happy with how the week went overall, although there's still time left in the day as I'm recording this on Sunday, and I'm above my 7 hour target for the week at 8 hours, which is really great. And I think that a lot of the challenges that I faced last week and difficulties, I've kind of done a really great job kind of overcoming them or just kind of changing things around this week. So I focused a lot on vocabulary, especially new word acquisition, which is something that I think I struggled with kind of over the past month. And so, that's been a big focus, and that was really great this week. And in general, I tackled each of the language learning areas overall. So I did vocabulary, grammar, listening, reading, so all the kind of major areas, which is great. I think that just starting off with vocabulary, I really just kind of focused in on new word acquisition and just learning some of the existing words that I've kind of already just been exposed to. And it's going along quite nicely. It's just, I think that something that's really important to remember with vocabulary is that it just takes a while, right? It takes a while to get these words into your, long-term memory. It gets a lot of exposure, whether that's through reading or listening or, you know, flashcards or an app or whatever, just to get those words into your long-term memory, to get them comfortable, right? Where you can just start using them in spoken format or just to recognize them immediately when you're listening to content or reading content. So I always try to kind of keep that in the back of my mind, right? Where, there's certain words that I feel pretty good about, and then other words where it's a little bit shaky. But I do realize that with enough exposure and enough time, those words are going to improve. But, just in general, I'm still kind of quite the beginner at Russian, and I'm just kind of exposing myself to more and more words. And I am learning the words that I have been exposed to better and better over time. So it's going quite nicely. And I think that, even from a month ago, there are certain words that I think I just struggle with a little bit, right? Like you can't get them down, or it's very foreign. But after kind of a month or two later, I'm way more comfortable with those words. I can recognize them nearly immediately. So I think that's just a good example to show you that it takes time to just kind of get these words into your long-term memory, no matter what method you're doing, whether it's reading, flashcards, a vocabulary list, an app, or whatever. But it's going quite nicely. I'm liking the progress of just learning new words and kind of just getting exposed more and more to the words that I have already learned. And of course, those kind of very high impact words that you find, you're going to see them again and again when you read and listen and are just exposed to the language overall. So I'm very happy about vocabulary progress. It's going nicely. It is a process in of itself. It just takes time to, learn a ton of words in the language, which is, a big reason why it just takes so long to reach a high skill level in a language. I've also continued my listening, which is going quite nicely. I'm very happy about that. Listening is it's difficult at times, but I'm very happy just kind of with the progression. It's slow, but it's steady. I'm recognizing words when I am listening to content, and I'm trying to mix it up. I will listen to some news, I'll listen to some YouTubers in Russian, and so I'm kind of exposed to a lot of different voices, a lot of different accents, and people speaking at a little bit different paces, right? Some people speak a little bit slower, and others speak a little bit faster. Maybe they have more of an accent or they're talking about different things. So I'm kind of trying to mix it up with my listening. And for the most part, it's just to kind of get comfortable with the sounds of the language, to just kind of try to notice some grammar here and there, to notice words, and just kind of overall improve that skill, even if it's just a small amount. I'm continuing grammar review. It's not my biggest focus, but I'm kind of focusing in on the major areas, which is just kind of reviewing some tables and some lists just to kind of get them more into my long-term memory, where when I'm reading or when I'm just exposed to Russian in general, I'm able to just kind of notice them such that it'll be a more pleasant experience when I'm reading or just doing Russian content in general. So that would be, for example, just making sure that I'm very comfortable with the endings in the present tense, or the past or the future. I'm also been concentrating on just kind of some of the endings, for example, for adjectives in all the different cases in Russian, or just kind of some things like that. And I'm not perfect at them, and even if I memorize the entire table, it doesn't really matter too much. You still have to be exposed to this grammar and context again and again. But kind of my rationale with it is that if I am exposed to these kind of endings, if I kind of know them by memory just a little bit, it'll make the reading process easier, and I'll be able to notice these things versus it just kind of being this kind of random grammar element that I don't understand, right? So I think that that's kind of one of the big things with grammar is that if you're able to recognize the grammar concept, if you're able to recognize that, oh, that's the past tense, even if you haven't memorized all of the endings, or you can, at least kind of somewhat identify what that grammar element is. I think it makes the process of reading or doing whatever way more powerful, right? Because you're not. It's just not this very foreign idea where after a ton of repetitions, you finally figure it out, right? I think that you can kind of lower the time it takes to just kind of learn those things in context through just some initial grammar review, and that's just kind of what I've been doing. So that's kind of going quite nicely. And then I've been doing some reading as well. It's slow just because, with reading, it is difficult at first. There's a lot of words out there, but it's progressing quite nicely. I don't really have anything too much to say with that. But it's like kind of all the other areas, it's going nicely. So overall with Russian, I'm very happy with it. It's progressing quite nicely. There's still room for improvement. I think that I can get even more time in than kind of the 8 hours that I'm doing. It's just been a very busy year, but that's okay. We do what we can and we move forward. And I'm very happy with the vocabulary progress, especially with this week compared to the last couple of weeks. And kind of some of the optimization strategies that I have been doing, I'm also very happy with those as well. Just kind of doing a lot more frequent repetitions throughout the day, just a 2 minute review here and there, or a 5 minute review or 30-second review. I think that's been very helpful. I've been trying to listen wherever I can. Do some grammar reviews, so it's all been very good. And I think that another thing too is that I haven't been listening nearly as much as I would like, and I think that for me at least, sometimes, at least at this early level, I'm only getting so much out of the listening process with Russian. And so, sometimes when I'm doing other activities, I'll put on an audiobook or do something else productive that's not language learning related. So I think that as my skill improves, I'll be listening a lot more just because I'll be getting a lot more out of it. I know that's probably not the best answer for why I'm not listening more, but I'm very happy with just the overall progress in each of the areas. So I don't feel like it's too necessary just to cram double the time in with listening or what have you. But I think that as my skill level improves, I will kind of ramp that up just moving forward. And so overall, Russian is going quite nicely. So this week, I wanted to talk about pushing through and persevering in your language learning. And I think this is very important because sometimes when we're just learning a language, you have to just keep doing the activity that you're doing. You have to keep pushing. You have to keep going until you start to see results or things just become easier. And of course, sometimes you need to change things up, right? We're not having fun with our method and we need to do something that's more fun. We need to do something new or novel because we've been doing the same thing over and over again. Or maybe something is not effective anymore or it could be better and we could optimize our language learning to make more progress in the end of the day. But other times, we just gonna have to have patience and keep pushing through just because it is going to take a while to just get really good at a language, there's just no way around it. And if you just kind of think about it, there's certain concepts that are just going to take some time. So probably the most easy example is just with words, right? We can do some methods to help kind of improve our acquisition of the vocabulary, right? Maybe we can quiz ourselves. Maybe we can say the words out loud. We can write them down. We can add this kind of kinesthetic, this visual, this auditory element to things. But ultimately, we kind of have to just memorize that word. We have to kind of get that into our long-term memory. Like I said, there's different ways we can do that. We can do it through reading. We can do it through flashcards, a vocabulary list, an app. But it's just going to take some time for our brain to process that word, right? To remember it, and then to remember it quicker and quicker, or almost immediately when we're reading or when we're listening. And that's just going to take time, right? It's going to take a certain number of repetitions in a flashcard. It's going to take a certain amount of exposure with reading or listening, and it's just going to build over time. And of course, there might not necessarily be an endpoint with that kind of memorization aspect. It might just be that you know the word pretty well after 2 months, and then after a year, you know it even quicker. You know it even more, right? Where you can just kind of process it immediately. And of course, over time, the more times that you hear that word, you see that word, you say that word, the stronger it's going to be in your vocabulary in terms of expressing it, in terms of seeing it when you're reading or when you're listening to audio content and you recognize that. And it's just going to take time. There's just no way around it. And so I think that's very important when we talk about language learning, is just to remember that it's going to just take time to kind of get those words into our memory. And it's true for all the other areas within language learning itself too, right? With speaking, maybe you're really struggling to express yourself kind of with a new word order, or you just have this kind of you pronounce certain words incorrectly, or you just struggle to express your thoughts and find the right words, right? Well, it's going to take some time to just kind of be able to make less mistakes, right? It's going to take some time to speak quicker, to speak more elegantly. But what you have to do is put the time in. You have to put the energy and effort in to get better. And slowly, if you keep working at it, right, you try to work smart with it, but you put in the time as well, you're going to start speaking quicker, you're going to make less mistakes, etc. And so, it's just true with all the areas, right? You're struggling with listening, you're struggling to understand the Netflix show, you have to keep practicing, you have to keep learning words, keep listening, keep doing those things, and eventually the Netflix show will become easier and easier. You'll get more enjoyment out of it. And I also say this too with video games, where when you first start off using video games with language learning, it is so difficult, right? You are just bombarded with so much stuff going on, right? You have maybe audio content that you don't understand. You have these menus. You're trying to click things and you don't even know what the button does. Maybe there's just you're not familiar with the game, and so it's very overwhelming. You don't know what's going on in the story. But at that stage when you start, that's probably the hardest it's going to be. If you persevere and keep going, you're going to learn some words. You're going to get more comfortable with the user interface. You're going to recognize, okay, this is the button. This means like the options in the video game. Now I know what that word is. Now I can navigate to that if I need to, right? And okay, I'm understanding kind of what this menu means or what this action does because I've learned this word, or at least I can look it up. I'm comfortable looking it up in Google Translate kind of in a second window. So then, right, things get easier, right? You start to know a couple words related to the video game. You're comfortable with just not understanding everything in the audio content because, after maybe 5 or 6 playthroughs, right, 5 or 6 play sessions, you haven't just been overwhelmed once. You've been overwhelmed 5 or 6 times. You're more comfortable with it. You kind of just stop resisting, and you just say, okay, I accept this. I'm going to just try my best and go for it, right? And now the process is becoming easier, and because you're kind of more used to things, you're going to be in a better state to be learning the words, in the video game, to process the audio content, and you're going to get more out of it because you're in that better mental state. So, an example like with video games, it's just going to take some time to get comfortable, and of course, just it's going to take some time to really see the benefits that you can gain from something like that as a language learning resource. So I think that it's always important, of course, right, to try to make things more efficient, to see if you're having fun, to change things up when you need to. But other times, you just got to have that patience, right? You got to have that patience that it's going to take time to process the words, to get comfortable with Netflix or speaking. And there's just no way around it, right? I think that this is just kind of very important. And it's something that I think that, we should talk about more often when we're talking about learning a language, just because, like I said, we can optimize those things, but after at some point, it's just going to take us some time to get those words down, and we might be slower than other people. It might be more challenging for us to pick up the grammar, but we have to just kind of accept that and keep going, right? But of course, as I say in all my other videos, try to find better ways to do things, whether it's from a kind of a new perspective, to have more fun, to be more effective, just to kind of speed that process up overall. And I think that this all ties nicely because because it just takes time to process those words or whatever it is, you want to have fun, right? If you want to just enjoy the activity that you're doing within language learning, right? If you're reading in a foreign language, you want to kind of be enjoying that reading process where you're learning something that you want to read, or listen to something that you want to listen to, or try to play video games, or what have you, or practice speaking. I think that it's very important because it's just going to take time for those things to click within the language learning process, whether it's grammar, whether it's vocabulary, or speaking, or what have you. I mean, I'll give you a good example. Just recently, right? I've read the grammar explanation for verbs of motion within Russian, and sometimes you just have to read the grammar explanations over and over and over again to understand it. And like, there was a point where I just kind of read the explanation one time, and something just clicked for me, and I said, "Oh, okay." I just noticed this kind of verb emotion, and the endings that get attached onto them sometimes when I was reading. Something clicked, and it just requires enough repetitions, enough reviews of the explanations to get comfortable with it, for it to click, for it to just feel better and better, and easier, and less overwhelming. So, and that's going to happen with all the different aspects of the language, whether it's grammar, vocabulary review, etc. So key lesson here is persevere. Keep pushing through, right? Obviously, change the methods up when you need to, whether it's to have fun or what have you, but realize that there's going to just be some perseverance required within the language learning process. Keep going, right? Assuming that your method is good, right? Keep going. And eventually you're going to overcome that. You're going to get more comfortable. You're going to learn more. You're going to overcome those difficulties that you're facing in your language learning process. And so now I wanted to kind of transition into a weekly reflection, which I talk about each and every week. And I think it's really important to just kind of reflect on how the week went in your language learning, or how the day went, or the month went. It doesn't really matter kind of, when you reflect, but I think it's important because it helps you to just kind of stay motivated, to pat yourself on the back, give you some confidence that you're making progress in your language learning. And of course, to identify kind of problems that you might be facing, whether it's kind of your motivation is just slowly decreasing over time. Your method isn't very effective. And of course, when we can identify those problems, we can fix them, and then hopefully make more progress, have more fun in our language learning, etc. So I would just kind of ask you, what are three things that went really well this week, and what are three things that did not go so well? So for example, for me, I was really happy with my vocabulary progress this week. I was very happy that I kind of really ramped that up, especially compared to the last couple of weeks. So that's going really well. I'm very happy about the fact that I've already met kind of my hour total for the week, and that my language learning is slowly ramping up. And of course, I'm also really happy that my grammar review and understanding is increasing slowly but surely. I'm definitely noticing a change just from the past couple of weeks. So, what are three things that you have been doing really well, right? And if you're doing really well on them, maybe you can double down on them, and just try to just give yourself some extra motivation and confidence that you're doing the right things. And of course, what are three things that you're not doing so great? What could you do better? For example, for me, I know I can get more language learning in, and I just need to find that time to go ahead and do that. I can be a little bit better at my grammar review. I think I can optimize it just a bit, just to get a couple more repetitions in throughout the entire week. And I think that even though it's very difficult at times, I can get more listening in throughout my day, especially when I'm doing other tasks. There is that opportunity. So, what are three things that you can do? And it can be a lot more detailed. You can kind of maybe question the app that you're using, or the methods. You can really kind of go as deep as you want in this analysis. But I think that when you kind of identify a problem, if you identify something that's maybe not going so great, maybe you're losing motivation, maybe you're kind of bored with the way you're learning vocabulary, or you're not happy with your speaking progress, don't just leave it there, right? Ask yourself, how can I improve this? How can I make this better? What can I do to just improve that process 2% or 5%, or even change it up radically? You can do a new method for a week and see if it works. And if it doesn't, you can try something else or go back to that old method. So I think that just 5 minutes, 10 minutes here or there on reflecting how your day went, your week went with language learning, or even month, doesn't have to be a week or day time frame, can be very helpful, because you can identify those problems that you're facing, and of course, find ways to remedy those problems that you have, to make your language learning more efficient. And a 2% gain, a 5% gain, or whatever it is, over the long term is really going to add up. So do that reflection. Think about how your language learning is going from a positive perspective, and maybe not a not so positive perspective, and and try to find ways to just make things better overall. And before concluding, I wanted to do something that might help you to get a little bit more motivation, just to kind of keep you inspired or get you inspired to do more language learning or just kind of stick with it, especially if your motivation is waning a little bit. And I would just take a step back and really think about where you want to be in the future with your language learning. I want you to imagine or envision what that looks like or what you're doing. And I also want you to specifically just think about, what do you want to be doing in your language learning process just in, the next month or the next 3 months or 6 months or 12 months. And you don't have to be specific about it. You don't have to give a time frame, but I think it's important to just try to like visualize the future, to try to think about what you want to do, and just try to put yourself in that experience such that you can kind of get that motivation, inspiration to get to that level, or just to be thinking about doing those things moving forward. So for example, two things for me that I want to do is I want to eventually get to a place where I can start reading Leo Tolstoy's War and Peace in Russian, right? Obviously a very ambitious goal, but I can kind of envision myself slowly reading that, or just trying to experience that in Russian, into the future, right? Obviously, I'm way far away from that, but it's just something that I'm thinking about wanting to do in the future. Another thing too is that actually like to play the Metro 2033 games in Russian, like the Last Light or the original, just because I think that'd be really cool. It's kind of got that post-apocalyptic Russian setting, and so that's kind of a video game I'm looking forward to playing in Russian, into the future, right? There's other video games too, but that's just something that I can think of that will be kind of a cool experience to just do in Russian. And that's what I had for the week. So let me know what you think. If you're open to it, leave a comment below. Let me know how your language learning is going. What are you doing right? What are you doing wrong? And what are your plans into the future with your own language learning? And with all that being said, I'll see you all in the next video. Take care.